You may be thinking about, I want to write a book, or you may have a side hustle that, is consuming your thoughts. And it's like, there's something inside saying, hey, you need to give this a little bit more life. You need to open up to this. I made a post a few weeks ago about the Sunday scaries. All these people talk about the Sunday scaries. I don't want to go to work tomorrow. Well, maybe check that a little deeper. Maybe dig into that and ask yourself, like, what are these feelings? I mean, if we don't wake up on Monday mornings ready to go, like, we need to take a deep look in the mirror.
This is Andrew Petty is Dying, where we tap into the power of our mortality to become the people we were made to be and live the lives we were made to live. I'm your host, Andrew Petty, and I'm dying. I hate to say it, but so are you. In episode 70, Forward Pioneer, Why the Frontier is the Best Place to Be, I asserted that we humans are made for the frontier, and the frontier is made for us. To shrink back from it is to do ourselves and everyone around us much more harm than good. It's a short solo episode. If you haven't listened to it yet, hit pause on this one and cue up that one. It's a perfect appetizer for today's main course. Today, we get a report from the frontier from one of my favorite pioneers, my friend Kris Reeves. This episode is episode 70 with skin on, so to speak, and it will encourage and equip you to take your next steps into the frontier that's calling to you. I met Kris a couple of years ago in one of those small world, technology-enabled moments of serendipity. He was researching real estate in my local Steamboat Springs market, came across my wife's Instagram business account. Kris and Karis connected. Somehow I got looped in, and it quickly became evident that Kris and I had a lot in common and a lot to talk about. It's been a pleasure to watch his frontier story unfold since then. About 5 weeks ago, Kris called on the first weekday in almost 2 decades that he wasn't reporting to his corporate job. He was calling to celebrate that he'd burned the ships and fully committed to his new professional frontier. Immediately, I knew I wanted to share his story, and Kris has been kind enough to oblige. Once you get to know Kris, though, I think you'll agree that he wasn't just doing me a favor. Helping others become pioneers in their own right is part of his calling in life. Kris is Birmingham, Alabama born and raised, and his accent is music to my ears as a native Southeasterner myself. After almost 20 years in HVAC distribution and manufacturing, Kris and his wife Jennifer responded to the call of their next frontier to invest in commercial real estate, self-storage to be exact. They've had remarkable success in a remarkably short period of time. As Kris will attest, though, the apparent, quote, overnight success of Peak Storage Group LLC was carried on the shoulders of years of preparation behind the scenes. Without further ado, let's tune in to Kris Reeves' report from the frontier. When did you begin to realize that a new frontier was calling to you, and how did that realization hit you?
Well, I feel like that goes back throughout my life. I can look back at different seasons and see something was calling me bigger than going to work for someone or some company. But it really started to burn. My biological father passed away in February of 2020. And then obviously about 3 weeks later, the whole world changed with COVID. And so 2020 was a really tough year for a lot of us, but specifically for me, it was just, the loss of a father. I'm a very social being, and COVID took a lot of that away. So 2020 was a tough year. And so kind of 2021 rolled around, and the kids went back to school, and Jennifer went back to work, and I was sitting here in this very chair pondering life. And it wasn't a New Year's resolution conversation with myself. It was what are the things that bring you joy? What are the things over the course of a year that you lay in bed thinking about? You Google search in your free time. You spend your free time thinking about, dreaming about, looking forward to. What are those things? And I literally made a list of those things, nothing to do monetarily, just what are the things that bring you joy? And then looking at that list thinking, why do I spend so little of my life? I'm 44 years old. The best years of my life, why do I spend so little time doing the things that bring me and my family the greatest joy? And so kind of started with that list. So I would say, to answer your question specifically, January 2021.
That part of your story had fallen out of memory, that your dad had passed right before COVID hit. And you've got the benefit of a couple years now to reflect on the impact of his death. How did that affect you? How did it play into your decisions to open up a new frontier?
Well, a little background on my dad. Dad was a hippie, and he and mom were 19 when I was conceived, and dad was a free spirit, very positive guy, always there to help. And I had exceeded every expectation he ever had for my life. When he passed on that day, he was the most proud of me that day over any other day. And so he is where I get my positivity and my sunny disposition from. And so just reflecting, obviously there are a lot of parts to the story in 42 years, but just really taking that and saying, yeah, he was the most proud of me on the day he died, but that's not where the story ends. I want to take this last name and really make it something that he would be proud of. And that's kind of a deathbed promise I made, that, hey, I know you're proud today, but you haven't seen anything yet. And so that's kind of looking back now. I couldn't tell you that a week after he passed. I can clearly look back now and say, hey, I'm doing this for him. I'm doing this for us, and us being immediate family, immediate circle, friends, acquaintances. So I would say that's how I look back on it.
You had a pleasant life, as far as I could tell, before you decided to respond to the call to a new frontier. So why rock the boat? I mean, you were in a great house, in a great community, with a great family, plenty of money and then some to do things that you wanted to do. Why rock the boat?
So I guess we probably need to go back to that January 2021. And Jennifer and I, my wife, we had been researching this event called 29029 Everesting. And it is basically an endurance event that you climb the vertical equivalent of Mount Everest from sea level to summit in 36 hours. And this great group of people hold 4 of these events a year, and we signed up for it. We had been pondering it for 2 or 3 years, and actually did a virtual in 2020, but we wanted to do the real thing. So we signed up, and in August of 2021, my wife and I climbed the vertical equivalent of Mount Everest in Snow Basin, Utah, in 34 and a half hours. Trained for it side by side for 7 months, which was a whole nother wonderful experience. But when we climbed that, it's crazy. It's insane what we did. But you realize you're capable of so much more. And taking, what I learned from dad passing away, and we really went after something that most people, you tell people and they're like, why would you want to do that? And it's hard, I can't explain it, but we did it. And we met countless amazing individuals doing amazing things in the world. And it's like, first question is man, what have we left on the table through today? And how can we avoid leaving anything on the table between now and hopefully another 40 to 50 years? A combination of a lot of this stuff, a lot of lessons learned along that training path, a lot of lessons learned from loss, but more importantly, it's like, you preach all the time, be who we were made to be and live the life we were made to live. And something that you said in one of your former episodes was, if God has more in store for us than we can ever imagine, then isn't it our responsibility to imagine as big and do as big as we can in our time on earth? And so all of that just to say, hey, this is not working in corporate America. I'm having little to no impact on anything but this small circle. And I don't know, this current frontier that I'm in is not the last frontier. It's not the final frontier. It's the next frontier. I've got some goals. We've got some 3 to 5 year goals. And then that will put us in the position to figure out what the next frontier is.
So you're already seeing this frontier orientation as a successive experience of multiple frontiers. As you open up one, that expands the realm of which you are lord, so to speak. And then having established yourself in that realm, you can explore new frontiers and increase the size of your kingdom in a benevolent sense. You're not a tyrant. We're not talking about some sort of empire thing here, but your personal footprint in the world expands over time. And I think that's a really mature viewpoint to have, and not one that many of us often have, is this: I haven't just opened up one frontier, I have become a pioneer. And by definition, pioneers are continually opening frontiers. And, in this most recent episode on Frontier that I did, one of the statements I made was that, we were made for the frontier and the frontier was made for us. And that's one of my attempts to get at this idea that, why would we rock the boat? Why would we ever consider leaving the familiar and the known to go out into the unfamiliar and the unknown? And in your case, you've said some of that is because of things that have been within you since you were a kid. Just a desire to grow and do new things and try new things and do things your own way. But even with that impulse, the power of the status quo is pretty compelling, to kind of keep things the way they are. So I'm curious what it took to break the grip of the status quo and actually respond to the call of the frontier. Because it's one thing to go, that looks interesting and appealing over there. I think I might want to go try that. And it's another thing entirely to burn the ships, as you did 5 weeks ago when you left corporate America, and actually enter that frontier. So what did it take for you and Jennifer to actually finally break the grip of the status quo and do your own thing? And a quick caveat to all the listeners: neither Kris nor I are here today to advocate for the entrepreneurial path as somehow better than any other path in life. It just happens to be the frontier that Kris has found suits him and that he's opened up for himself. So don't hear this as a sales pitch for entrepreneurial activities, because if all of us were entrepreneurs, the world would be in chaos. Plenty of things would be started. Nothing would ever be finished or sustained. So we need entrepreneurs, but we need folks of different mindsets as well. So back to the original question: what did it take to break the grip of the status quo and respond to the call of this frontier?
A lot of preparation, years of dreaming. I mean, we didn't know exactly what we were planning for, but we've been, let me give the credit where credit's due. My wife is an amazing human being to start with, but she's wonderful at planning. She's wonderful at strategy in business and family. When we met, we kind of dreamed of this life that we're creating. And so this is years. This is not a year and a half worth of, okay, well, let's just, burn the boats and go do something. This is years and years of planning and saving and being diligent about everything. So this is just the culmination of lots of years of preparation. This is just when it happened. This is just the season for it. And we still dream of this life that we can't fully see. This is just the season of it. And this was a big step in that direction to kind of take us to that next frontier.
And if I'm not mistaken, your eyes are leaking a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Is there emotion attached to that?
100%.
What are you feeling as you're talking about all of this?
We grow up and you think your life's going to be this way, or you think your life's going to be that way, and you hit some bumps in the road. I divorced my children's mother in 2010, and I met Jennifer in 2013. And that period between 2010 and 2013, all the uncertainty and all of the self-doubt and feelings of failure, they creep in, and you don't know kind of which way this thing's about to go. And then, she shows up and this is beyond anything I imagined today. And we're not even scratching the surface of our potential. And so, yeah, man, it's very emotional. You hope that you find your person, you hope, your life's good. And here I am. And like you said, everything was great before, 5 weeks ago, but great compared to what? It's all relative. And we see collectively between she and I and our kids, hey, we have an opportunity to really make an impact. We're getting beyond making an impact on our immediate family. And now it's like, hey, we've got an opportunity to maybe impact others. And so, yeah, it's emotional.
So when the emotion begins to come up for you, some of it at least is attached to your gratitude for Jennifer's place in your life and how she represents a new chapter relationally and professionally and just holistically after, the ending of the tough ending of a tough chapter with your ex-wife.
Yeah, no doubt. She's been a great example for my daughters of a woman who's created, her own way in this world in a big way in the industry that she's in, the impact that she's had in a very brief career so far, and really is only getting started. What a great example for our girls, and Benjamin. And she's just a leader. I mean, she's a leader by nature. She's quiet, she's reserved, but every word that she speaks has a lot of meaning, and she's just incredible.
Man, I was able to hitch my wagon to an awesome woman too, and I feel that. I mean, just the power of that kind of partnership, and you got to put in a bunch of years before some of the most rewarding fruit begins to present itself. And I think you and Jennifer, from what you're describing, are entering that season where some of the fruit of the hard work you put in together relationally and with your kids and all that is beginning to present itself. And that's a wonderful place to be, man. And here's a shameless, unapologetic plug for everyone out there, if they're not in this mode, to seriously consider the path of a committed long-term partnership within the institution of marriage as the path to the most enriching, most rewarding, most adventure-filled kind of life you can possibly imagine. What obstacles did you encounter as you prepared to enter the frontier? Very often we attempt to move towards something that calls to us, and as soon as we begin moving in that direction, obstacles present themselves. Obstacles from within ourselves, obstacles from without. So what did you encounter?
I guess probably the biggest one that comes to mind is just the financial hurdle. What is this going to look like on the other side? I've been in this industry for 16 years, and I'm a growth-minded guy, and so it was always like, all right, what's the next promotion? What's the next, what can we do this year to impact our sales, but also our personal bottom line. And so, looking out, that was a very fixed world that I was in. Yeah, there were some opportunities, some upside, but this is a limitless world that I've entered into. And so, yeah, initially, we didn't replace my income on month one. We might not, year one, but the foundation we're laying today, will pay off long term. So that's the first thing that comes to mind. I guess the second thing is, you mentioned earlier, status quo. Hey, everybody else is getting up this morning, going to work. I guess I need to get up and go to work this morning. And I've got my kind of personal, as you call them, my personal board of directors that understand, and they're on their own. They're climbing their own mountains, and we're climbing together, right? But you start talking to other people outside of that growth mindset circle, and they don't get it. They're like, man, you've got it made. Why would you leave what you've got? And I can't explain it to those people. I try, and they're probably looking at me like I'm nuts, but that's okay. It was just time. I've conditioned myself over the past 20 years to have those conversations. So I would say those two, the financial and then just the social response when someone takes what from the outside looking in looks like an ideal situation. Those kind of things are the obstacles. But I'm a confident, very optimistic person, probably to a fault in a lot of situations. I'm a success. I will fail. I will have failures, but I'm not a failure. I will succeed. And so that mentality overcame any of those real obstacles, if you will, whatever you want to call them, stepping stones, if you will.
I love that, man. You'd have made a great Army Ranger if you listened to Ryan Davis's episode. That was essentially what he said in that episode. Is he recounted how he and his family have moved forward in the face of his just completely devastating injuries, combat related. He said, we look it in the face, their new reality, and we cry about it. We get angry about it. We go through all the emotional range, and we say we will not give in. They experience all the emotions attached to it, but they say we will not give in. And I hear the same sentiment in what you're saying, like, I will succeed. There's no question about that. It's just a matter of like, in what ways will I succeed? How long will it take to succeed? What will success actually look like? But when we're moving forward, when we're advancing in life, I think it would be hard to make a case that there's such a thing as failure, truly, because forward movement just produces the opportunities for growth. And when we're growing, that's a good thing. So I love that. I hear, if you want a third career, go ahead and see if they'll take a 44-year-old in as an Army Ranger. I'll go with you because I'm sort of, they'd scrub us out so fast.
Really fast.
Hey, I've got two thoughts that came to mind that I want to highlight for our listeners in the terms of like transferable lessons. And what I understand is that you guys began to make forays into this frontier while you were still operating in the corporate world. So you were developing your next frontier or chapter professionally, even as you were in your old one. And to use your Everest experience as a metaphor, it's like you maintained base camp and contacted the base camp and made occasional returns to base camp, even as you began to establish higher camps up the mountain. And there's a lot of prudence to that. And, you made your venture into the frontier a lot more wisely and a little less traumatically than my family did, because we just kind of burned the ships and just took off and said, we'll figure it out as we go. And I've so admired your and Jennifer's thoughtfulness and preparedness and tactical and strategic awareness as you made this change. So I want our listeners to hear that it often can be very prudent, not always possible, but it can be very prudent to keep a foothold in your current realm, even as you begin to make occasional forays out into the new frontier. So you've got that contact back with a home base, with a base camp where you can resupply, where you can get information and intel, where you can, rest, those kinds of things. And then another thing I want to highlight for our listeners is, you said you've had conversations with folks who understand kind of your orientation to life and with whom you can collaborate and grow in that way, and other people who just don't get it. And if ever we're interested in asking the question, what's the purpose of continuing to push our own boundaries and expand our own frontiers, among the many valuable reasons for doing it is the fact that as you do it and give yourself permission to do it, it begins to give others the opportunity to extend permission to themselves to pursue the things that are calling to them that they haven't yet pursued. And so this is not just Kris improving himself and his family's place in the world and responding to things that call to him. This is Kris beginning to challenge other people's worldviews and ways of thinking and living. And some of those folks, and I bet you can name a few already, are going to launch into their own new frontiers as a result of simply seeing you do it. And they go, well, if Kris can leave a comfy life in Alabama with all of his friends and community, then maybe I can too. And so we need to be aware of the fact that when we expand our frontiers, we really are changing the world. Change yourself, change your world, change the world. It's no little thing. And you're at the epicenter of a world-changing event right there in your family, Kris, in this new frontier and every frontier you open up past this.
Well, I would like to just go into this a little bit. A lot of people are, they get motivated, they get inspired, inspirational.
They go to a seminar and they're pumped up.
That's right. But what are you going to do with it, right? What are you going to do with the motivation? What are you going to do with the inspiration? It's not enough to be motivated or inspired. We must be empowered. And it wasn't until I embraced what I just said that things began to change. When you get inspired by someone like whoever it is, David Goggins or whoever. Okay, so go run a 5K. Education without action is just entertainment. If we don't do something with that fuel, then, how are we better off? And so, I could sit here and give you a handful of examples that just have been impacted just this year. And I take no credit for it. So we went on a guy's ski trip in February, and actually, to take it back, one of the amazing people that I met on that Everesting excursion, Mike Jurek, lives in London, and he and I began intentionally having weekly conversations. It's 3 p.m. there, it's 9 a.m. here. We started that like in January, and so a month into that, we go. He comes from London to Copper Mountain, Colorado, and comes on this guy's ski trip. And we get on a ski lift with a third guy that's in our group, and Mike and I are talking about, kind of what we've learned just in a month and how things are progressing. And this third guy, Will's like, oh my God, can I please join that call that you guys have on Fridays, like I need to hear this stuff. Like I'm dying in this corporate life and I've got this desire to do something else and I have no idea how to do it. Well, August 1st, this guy leaves this career that he's had for 12, 14 years and now he owns his own company. And he's like, man, if I would not have been on that ski lift, I'd still be there. It's that impact that now you're starting to see, man, you're not just doing this for yourself. You're doing this for others, and also pay attention to your path because others are watching, right? He would give me and Mike the credit, and me and Mike take no credit. Like we didn't do anything. We literally gave him a platform. We gave him a space to share the feelings that he had, and we encouraged him. Like that didn't cost us anything. But now his path is different. And again, like you said, like not to pitch the entrepreneurial path, that's just our paths, but you may be thinking about, I want to write a book or I want to, explore this, or you may have a side hustle that, is consuming your thoughts. And it's like, there's something inside saying, hey, you need to give this a little bit more life. You need to open up to this, because until we do that, it's just, I made a post a few weeks ago about the Sunday scaries. All these people talk about the Sunday scaries, I don't want to go to work tomorrow. Well, maybe check that a little deeper, maybe dig into that and ask yourself, like, what are these feelings? If we don't wake up on Monday mornings ready to go, like we need to take a deep look in the mirror.
Really well said, Kris. And, lives lived that way until it's over tend to be full of regrets. Those are the people who say, that dream I had, I just wasn't willing to pursue it. And I bitterly regret that. That relationship with my daughter that I never mended because I was just stuck in my hamster wheel, I bitterly regret that. And so I totally just double tap on that. Check those things out. I think that's part of the moral of your story is I think with the helpful nudge from behind of your dad's death, the COVID situation, those unpleasant and unwelcome pain points caused you to consider a little bit more closely the kind of life you were living, and you found in certain ways it was lacking. You began to look at it and ask some questions. And then over time, as you said just a second ago, my words, not your words, but what I heard was essentially just begin feeding that thing, giving it a little bit more attention. It's like there's this animal over in the corner that doesn't go away, but you're not paying much attention to it, but suddenly it starts catching your eye and you start, like tossing it a steak every once in a while, and it begins to grow and become this. That's a weird metaphor. Anyway.
Elephant in the room.
I got a lot of those. But to begin moving in that direction doesn't mean you have to make all the decisions and solve all the problems and make a big leap today. In fact, it's foolish to think that we can know all the things that need to be known and answer all the questions that need to be answered, because we don't actually know what needs to be known and the questions that need to be answered down that path until we start going down it. So just start feeding that thing a little bit. Just take one step down that path, and then more will be made known to you and you can respond to that and keep moving. How do you feel about your decision now that you're fully committed to this new frontier, 5 weeks in? And as we got on this call, you said, hey man, I just put this time on my calendar because my time is my own and I can do what I want with it when I want, which is a wonderful statement of self-permission. So 5 weeks into this, your time is all your own. How do you feel about it? Burn the ships.
It feels amazing. One thing I'd like to mention is I did burn the boats, but I didn't burn any bridges. The company that I had,
that'll preach.
A company that I had worked for almost 8 years. Incredible team, incredible people, lifelong friends. Cannot say enough about the culture that we had within our business unit, and the many meetings that we had in various places and memories we created. That all meant something, and that prepared us for this next frontier. But I will say that didn't burn any bridges. Left and worked out a 2-week notice. Said see you later to everyone. Didn't say goodbye to.
Fair enough.
I said see you later to most, and I love those people. And there are a couple, in that group that they've got their own thing that's burning at them, and now like, hey, we can be an example, of hey, feed that thing, just like what we were just saying. But no regrets at all. A lot of people that I talked to before I jumped that had jumped at some point in their life, they all said the same thing, man, I wished I had done it earlier. But, the old Chinese proverb, best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the next best time is today. So, no better time than now. These 5 weeks have been, again, the pressure is self-applied now. It's not that nagging email. It's not that ringing phone. It's now that, hey, you're in the arena now. Okay, the lights are on you. Everything that you've learned, everything that you've read, everything you've studied, every conversation you've had has prepared you for this. Now perform. And so that's all self-applied pressure. And I love it because, I'm my own worst critic. I know what I want me to do. Having the freedom to spend those days in the most productive and most rewarding ways it's the ultimate freedom. And things that I've learned and studied, now I'm able to provide that value to others. And man, I could really go into that, but man, just a couple of the guys that I'm, are in my circle now are just several rungs up, but they see value in me. They see the hunger, they see the ambition, and they, people want to be associated with that. It's not me asking for help. It's, hey, now you provide this value, and these people that have climbed a little bit ahead of you, they see that value and they see themselves in you, and they want to reach down and pull you up. And man, I can say, like, in my life, and this is cool, there have been so many people that have reached down and helped pull me up. I am not a self-made person. I don't believe in self-made. My book will have chapter after chapter of individuals who have helped to pull me up. And what's cool about this current season is now I'm in that position to potentially help. I don't have all the answers. I don't have all the wisdom, but I have lived a little bit, and I can kind of help guide, others. So I heard someone the other day say, when we're young, we've got our health and we can run and we can work out and we can do all of this stuff, but we don't have the wisdom. But then when we get, older, into our 60s and 70s, we've got all the wisdom, but our body's kind of like, all right, I'm kind of winding down here. And it's that magic middle that we've gained some wisdom, we've gained some experience and knowledge, and our body's still, I can still go snowboard, I can still go mountain bike, I can still go run a marathon like right now, and I've gained. So I want to make sure that I'm present right now while I've got my health and while I've got a little bit of wisdom, still seeking wisdom every day, but living in this season and really understanding what I just said and making sure that I apply that, and don't take it for granted. Don't wake up and I don't want to go run this afternoon, but I'm going to go run this afternoon, because I can, I don't want to get to the point where I want to go run and I can't. It's hard. Nobody wants to do it. Nobody wants to hike. Nobody wants to, go do physical things, but we have to, if we want to have any sort of longevity, it's imperative.
I didn't when I coulda, now I can't when I wanna, was something that an elderly man said to one of my clients one time, and I thought, ooh, that stings. I mean, I don't want to be that guy, and it sounds like you're working hard not to be that guy. And what you were just sharing reminded me of that old phrase that all ships rise. I think many ships around you are rising on the tide of your courage and willingness to move out into new frontiers. So keep going, Kris. Keep going, man. You are making a difference. What do you hope we all take away from today's conversation? If you could bottle it and give it to us and we would ingest it precisely as you intended, what would that thing be?
Well, Andrew, I am on the Andrew Petty is Dying podcast. So if I didn't mention anything to do with death, I feel like I'd be doing us both a disservice. I read a great book called The Sender, and it was about this friend who had another friend that was going through cancer, and he kept sending him these letters. And in one of the letters, he said, talking to the nurses and everything, he said, hey, tell them we all die in the end, just don't die in the middle. And man, that has always just really sat with me since I read it. And I feel like I walk around and 90% of the people are just kind of sleepwalking. And I want them to wake up. And so when I talk with someone that's maybe a little groggy is what I call it, it fuels me to speak to those people because they see something else. It's not just, all right, go to work for 40 years and get that gold watch and get that certificate. It's like, man, there's something else. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, but just don't die in the middle. Just don't die in the middle. I mean, get out, live with guts, gusto, and abandon. Don't stop listening to that inner voice because somehow it already knows where we're supposed to go. So I just encourage people just to listen to themselves, take some time in solitude, figure out what it is that's calling you and give life to that. Because I feel like if we live in that, we become the best versions of ourselves. We live the lives we were made to live. But if we just keep it as a Sunday scary, and never make any change, I think we're doing the whole world a disservice because we all have gifts. We all have individual gifts that others need, the world needs. Don't sell your gifts short.
Don't sell the world short by withholding them. Summon the courage in the moment to assume more complete responsibility for your life and pursue the thing that calls to you uniquely. It doesn't call to other people in the same way. So heed that call. One of the challenges, I think, for more people doing that is the sometimes unconscious awareness that if I step forward into that frontier and assume more complete responsibility for myself, that's almost an unbearable weight. I would prefer to outsource some of my responsibility if I could. Thank you very much. But you've stepped now into the realm where every moment of every day is 100% your responsibility. If money's coming in, that's your responsibility. If no money's coming in, that's your responsibility. If you're getting healthier, that's your responsibility. If you're getting unhealthier, that's your responsibility. And many of us shrink back in the face of that, whether it's a conscious or unconscious awareness. And I want to say that, folks, the path to greater freedom is through the land of greater responsibility. And it is a big weight, but better to shoulder that weight than not and remain a shadow of who we could be. And Kris, thanks for your example and spending some time with me and our listeners. Love your story. Love what you're doing. Keep going. I'm excited to see what frontiers continue to open up to you. And there's so much wisdom in what you shared today. How can our listeners connect with you? If they want to learn more about you, just pick your brain some more, what's the best way to reach you?
Find me on Instagram at Christopher M. Reeves. That's with a K. I'm on Facebook, on LinkedIn, just Kris, last name Reeves, Reeves. Happy to connect with anyone there. Love to talk real estate, love to talk life, love to talk snowboarding, mountain biking, any of those things. I would love to hear from you.
You're such a good guy, except for the snowboarding part, Kris.
Come on now.
Can you fix that? I mean, you need to be on 2 sticks. Not just one.
I've always been on 1 stick, from a skateboard to a kneeboard to a surfboard. It's always been.
I'll try and get over that. I mean, if we ever get a chance to get on the mountain together, I'll try and play nice as long as you play nice. But I might accidentally run into you from time to time.
Restate that. You and I met through the Steamboat connection, and we would not be on this call today if it weren't for Steamboat. So
cool how that all works. Serendipity abounds.
It is.
Everybody listening, remember, you are going to die, but you're not dead yet. If you're one of those groggy people sleepwalking through life, it's time to wake up and get after it. In this chapter of his story, Kris's frontier is a new professional path. But frontiers in our lives come in all shapes and sizes and flavors. Maybe the frontier calling to you right now has to do with your health, or a relationship, or a besetting fear. Some of you know exactly what frontier is beckoning. Others of you aren't sure at all, or are actively avoiding even the slightest suggestion of a frontier. But one thing is true of all of you. There is a new frontier with your name on it. This is where the unmatched status quo busting power of the mortality mindset shines. If you knew you were going to die exactly 5 years from today, what frontier would you venture into today? Whatever your answer is, summon the courage right now to take your first steps toward it. Tomorrow never comes, but death is inevitable. Don't die gazing upon your frontier from afar. Instead, die exploring it with guts, gusto, and abandon. And if you're already in your new frontier, keep going. Pioneering journeys are best undertaken with trusted, competent companions. That's precisely why I created the Graveyard Group. With your own confidential board of advisors in a small group setting, you break the power of the status quo and boldly forge ahead into the frontiers that are important to you. You rob death of deathbed regrets, even as you use it to motivate you. New groups for men and women are launching in January, led by a fantastic team of facilitators. Take control of your destiny. See if the Graveyard Group is right for you. Visit andrewpettycoach.com to learn more. I'm taking a creative break in December, so the next episode will air on Monday, January 9th, Lord willing and the creek don't rise. In the meantime, I wish all of you the very best of holiday seasons. In the midst of the hustle and bustle, give the things that matter most the attention they deserve. Hug the ones you love and tell them how much they mean to you. I'm so glad you tuned in today. Don't forget to follow this show, and I'll see you next time on Andrew Petty is Dying.